Welcome to I Could Talk to You All Day. I'm Lauren Lefkowitz, recovering workaholic, perfectionist, and people pleaser.
And I'm John Spears, emerging from playing small, getting caught up in the inertia of life, and always being on.
I Could Talk to You All Day is a show for executives and emerging leaders. This is not just another leadership podcast. We're here to talk about what it means to be a leader while also being human.
So join us for raw, vulnerable, and probably pretty funny conversations about shifting from surviving at work and home to thriving in the life you've always wanted. Let's get the conversation started. Lauren Lefkowitz, hello. How are you doing?
Hey, John Spears. I am good. I'm good.
You're good.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying that almost defensively.
Are you trying to prove that to yourself? Prove that to me?
Yes. Look, I'm like the happiest I've ever been in my life and also the most anxious I've ever been in my life. And so last week, anxiety won, and this week, happy is winning. And I am super fortunate to have people who will sit with me in both camps. And I'm really grateful for that. And you are one of those people who I can come to, call, text at a moment's notice and tell you what I need, and you're there for it. And it is really powerful to have that kind of relationship with you.
I love how we often open our episodes with this like love fest between us. We're like, oh my God, I love you so much. But it's true. We do it every time. I was going to mention, I was just in DC for like a few short hours, and you drove all the way to the Dulles airport to meet me before I went on a crazy like 24-hour flight to Africa. And it was just so sweet to like have that time with you. There was nothing, there was no like cafe. We found a Starbucks eventually and like sat in one of the like chairs by the baggage claim. But it was like so cool to have someone that like get up super early on a Sunday morning, drive like 30 minutes to the airport, pay for airport parking, and drink a Starbucks at baggage claim. It was like pretty amazing. So
it's just that was my favorite Starbucks, John. The one downstairs in Dulles Airport is my very favorite Starbucks. That's what
the barista. So like it totally makes sense. I know we also say this all the time, but like get yourself a Lauren Lefkowitz, or someone you can call, someone that's going to support you and be a cheerleader. I found it's made the world of difference in my life over the past year plus. And as a leader, it can be a really lonely gig sometimes, and to have someone who is just going to support you is amazing.
Yeah, it is really amazing. I feel like in the last few years, especially, I have made really deliberate choices about relationships in that I've become much more open to making new friends. And I think I had hit a point in my 20s where I was like, these are all the friends I get. And I mostly worked. And so my work people were my colleagues, and some of them were my friends, but there was that HR veil that had to stay up. And in the last few years, what I have recognized is I'm in my 40s. I'm allowed to make whatever friends I want. And I do a lot of, we're friends now, right? When I talk to people, because we're all waiting for each other to connect.
Yeah. I don't want to jump the gun here. I have a question about something you said earlier, but that is going to lead us into our conversation today, which is about relationships. And so this ability to connect and to think about connecting and to explore all the dynamics of relationships is something we're going to get to in a minute. But you said something earlier around sort of the paradox of your current experience. You're both the most happy that you've ever been and both the most anxious. And I was reading something somewhere recently that talked about life as a paradox. I don't remember what it was, but it made me really unhappy because I don't like that. I don't like the idea of life being a paradox. But I'd just love to hear from you. Like, how are you experiencing that paradox in your life right now?
Oh, we're going off topic right from the start, huh?
Yeah.
I'm glad to experience the full range of emotions. I think I lived for so many years in burnout and in this compulsion to people please and prove myself and do more and contribute more, that I didn't take the time or space to experience emotions outside of like pretty good or not so great. And the work that I've done over the last several years, both with coaches and with therapists, has been really opening up the ends of the spectrum and feeling things really deeply, both in a joyful way and in like sadness and anger and frustration. And the result of what is now is that because I feel things so much more, and because there are all of these years of built up anxiety, the feelings are all going somewhere. And so the happiness and the joy comes from choosing my own life, choosing my career, choosing to work about 40 hours or less every week, choosing to connect to people all the time, whether I'm out and about or whether as COVID numbers rise, I'm back in, that I'm constantly connecting with other people. I'm constantly connecting with myself, and fun things are happening all the time. The anxiety comes from the lack of stability that I've chosen for my life. No regular paycheck. If I don't have clients, I don't get paid. If I get sick and I have to cancel on my clients, like, what does that mean? Right. And so the uncertainty that I've chosen, because this is the life that I want, also comes with this flip side of anxiety. And I'm taking care of myself, and I'm seeing a therapist, and I'm leaning on my friends for cheering me on as I celebrate things and for supporting me when I'm not celebrating things. And I'm just trying to live the full experience, which is very different than the life I was leading just a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I love that. And I think it relates so much to what we always are trying to do here in these conversations. And that is bring in the human experience. Like, this is what it means to be human. And as much as I resist that, that means paradoxes all the time. It means both, and it means experiencing the full range of emotions, being all in when things are going well and it's invigorating and adventure and fun, and also all in when things are challenging and there's confusion or maybe some muddiness to kind of wade through. And that's what we want to do is continue to bring that experience into these conversations, and the reality that like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to experience, as uncomfortable as it may be for people who, like me and you, are recovering control freaks who want to make sure we have a certain experience and things look and feel a certain way. It's really unsettling to let go of that and to lean fully in to the human experience.
Yeah. And I don't do it perfectly. I don't even do it well all the time.
Same.
You know, right. And what also can exist is this joy, this anxiety, these ups and downs, and also still knowing that we are both incredibly capable people and incredibly successful people. And those can coexist. And when I started coaching people, there was this fear that if they knew who I really was, if they knew that I had chronic illness, if they knew that I had anxiety, if they knew that I wasn't doing everything perfectly that they were trying to do, I wasn't always one step ahead of them, that it would make it so that they didn't trust my work. And what I recognize now is that I am more trusted because I'm an actual human being with them. And I think that's something you and I both learned together, is like, the more human we are, the more relatable we are as people who can help other people.
Yeah. Quick plug to our previous episodes on vulnerability and authenticity. We talk all about that in those episodes, and really just so important into being an impactful and transformative leader. All right. So now on to the actual topic that we're going to talk about today, and that is relationships. And I am super intrigued by this topic for lots of reasons. I grew up with not a lot of great relationships. I think I've mentioned here on the podcast before that my dad left when I was 8, and I didn't really talk to him, or didn't talk to him from the time I was 8 to the time I was like 20, and then had a very brief relationship with him, like 3 weeks, and then he disappeared. And now I find myself in my early 40s, having a teenage daughter that I'm trying to navigate and trying to be a fully present, loving, patient, kind, empathetic father to a teenager. Those of you who are parents out there, I know you hear me. I know like I need to do some group coaching or be a part of some group coaching around this because it's hard. Relationships are really challenging. I'm also experiencing this really amazing relationship with this guy that I'm dating that's not so new anymore, but is new to me in terms of the kind of connection we have and how awesome that is. And also the challenges of navigating relationships at work and leading people and being able to show up fully and have relationships and all of these different contexts that I've just mentioned. And the thing that I love about it is, for me, relationships are like life to me. I find so much joy in connection, so much joy in intimacy. And I have never once, maybe I'm not reading the right books, but I've never once read a book about relationships in the context of leadership or listened to a podcast or heard someone talk about it. And I realized how, if I didn't have these other avenues to explore relationships, I would never have built the capacity to be able to have and navigate healthy relationships in my life.
It's so interesting that you just said that, because you're right. We hear so many podcasts and books and stuff on how to manage, right? So up to down, which is a type of relationship, but it's not really relationship building. It's learning how to do and execute a thing. And we learn about personal development, but we don't really talk about relationships at work. They are so important in your success at work, in your joy at work, and in your struggles at work, because not all relationships are easy.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think also the thing that's super interesting around this idea of relationships is the relationship that we have with ourselves. And if you were to say that to me like 5 years ago, I would have been like, what the bleep are you talking about? Like, my relationship with myself, like, I'm pretty woo-woo, but like that was like a bridge too far for me. Like this idea that I have a relationship with myself. And I often think that leaders who don't understand that concept of having a relationship with themselves aren't as transformative, aren't as impactful as those leaders who have a thriving relationship with themselves. And when I say that, I mean who know themselves, who are curious about themselves, who are kind to themselves. I remember going way back into college and in my first few jobs where I was a leader in my organization. I had no kindness for myself, and therefore I didn't have any kindness or compassion or empathy for other people. And I thought I had to be hard and kind of be harsh with others and demand respect. And I found that as I've grown in my career, the deeper my relationship with myself has gone, the more empathetic, the more loving I am, obviously to myself, but also to the people I work with, my colleagues, my direct reports, those that I report to. And it's made all the difference in my life, in my personal life, and also in how I lead. And I think the impact that I have as a leader in the world. So one of the questions I have for you is, why don't you think relationships and our relationship with ourselves isn't talked more about in leadership circles?
I think we are raised as humans to serve others. We're raised to not be selfish, which, by the way, the word selfish doesn't actually mean being self-serving at the expense of others. It just means serving yourself, right? And being you focused. I posted something on LinkedIn recently that started with quick list of 5 people who you love the most in this world. And then the next line was, why aren't you on that list? And you're not, because that's not what you naturally go to. You go to, who am I serving? Who do I love? Who is outside of me? And if you don't have a strong relationship with yourself, which sounds like super woo-woo, and I think we'll get into that a little bit more, but if you don't have a relationship with yourself and your own mind, body, and spirit, it's very hard to want to build relationships with others, because it's not two ways. If you're only serving others, that's not a relationship.
Yeah.
That's service, right? If you are serving only yourself, the other end of the spectrum, then you're kind of an arrogant jerk, right? Like, oh, everything's about you, John. That sounded really weird coming out of my mouth because that's not how you are. But
thank you for clarifying that. I
yeah.
appreciate it.
I'm just using an example.
For the record.
For the record, that is not how John Spears is. We should have a disclaimer at the end of every episode that these are examples only. So I think because we are so trained to serve others and we don't bring ourselves into it, we're not asking for a payback, right? And asking for a relationship feels like, what's in it for me? And we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to serve others and not expect anything in return except for a modest paycheck and a pat on the head. We miss out. We spend so much time at work, even if we're only, and I'm putting only in air quotes, even if we're only working 40 hours a week, if we're working an intense 40 hours a week, that is 40 hours a week. That's at least half of our waking hours during the week.
Yeah.
Right. If not more. Some of us need a lot of sleep. we deserve to like enjoy our work and enjoy our relationships at work and be able to have more than just the transactional give and take.
Yeah. I kind of mentioned what I thought a relationship with ourselves looked like, and I didn't ask you, and I'm really curious to see if you have a different take on that or what you would add to my kind of thinking around having a relationship with yourself.
My old way was that I didn't really enjoy me. And so I worked a lot, and because I enjoyed work and I was good at work, and I thought that was the value that I brought. So for me, there was a really deep and long search process with coaches, with therapists, with myself, to figure out what I liked about me. And it started external facing and finding out what other people liked about me.
Yeah.
I really had to work, and it wasn't fast and it wasn't one step, but I really had to work to figure out why I could, should, would like me. Learning that and going through that process really helped me to see my own value, determine what my values are, and really make conscious decisions to like myself and to have fun with myself. And like I said earlier, really feel my whole spectrum of feelings.
Yeah.
And it helped me work through some of the stuff I didn't like. It helped me to discover some of the stuff that I did like, but I wasn't ready to acknowledge. And it's worth it. You're worth your own time. And I think we forget that because we're so busy just like doing stuff for other people. And ultimately what it did for me was bring me more joy, allow me to have more fun in a non-self-conscious way. And it allowed me to choose my relationships differently and really decide who I wanted to reach out to and who I wanted to network with and who I wanted to just like really build deepening relationships with, including myself. And I don't exclude me from the conversation anymore. That for me is the biggest change in relationship with myself, is that what I want is important to me. And there was an exercise that we did in coach training in certification that was naming our survival mechanisms. And one of my survival mechanisms was named half happy hamster. And it was this sense that I wanted to make sure everybody else was happy around me. And like, I was kind of happy, but I didn't put enough of myself into things to get the recognition or the inclusion in things, because I was so busy making sure other people were happy that my response was always like, yeah, that's okay with me. And I've learned that when I insert myself in and my needs and my desires, that we can all be really happy together and all be really excited about it. And nobody leaves half happy.
Yeah. Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about some of the key fundamental components or attributes of healthy relationships. And I thought about understanding curiosity, commitment, support, love. And I realized that those things can only happen when we have those components or aspects of in ourselves. And the only way that we're going to develop those attributes or those components if we have a healthy relationship with ourselves, if we develop that in our own lives with ourselves. Because I'm a firm believer that if you don't have it in you, you can't give it away. And I have found that I'm able to love so much more fully now that I like fully love myself. I mean, you've been a part of this kind of conversation with me. Like I feel like if we're going to talk about, the great things about us, like I think I love fully with people. Like I feel like I show up, and I don't think that I could ever say that before 2-3 years ago. Like I loved very cautiously. And when I say love, I don't just mean romantic love. I mean loving people and loving the people I work with and my family and my friends. There is a marked difference in the way that I show up for others because of the way that I've shifted in showing up for myself. And it is like coming to that realization even now in this conversation is so powerful that it's such a motivator for me to continue to like deepen my relationship with myself and be curious about why I'm feeling a certain way and sort of curious about what's happening internally, and also being okay with whatever it is. I mean, I also heard in what you said earlier, just this acceptance for who we are and not constantly interpreting the things we see in our lives in a negative way. We have as humans this real ability to interpret or to have a negative view of ourselves or things because it helps us stay alive, right? I forgot the name of the term, but it's a legit scientific thing that we do to keep ourselves safe. And as we shift and do work on our mindset and our relationship with ourselves, it just frees us up to such vibrant, healthy, profound relationships, both with ourselves, but like more importantly, with our colleagues, with our family, with our partner, with our friends.
It's true. And we are taught, going back to work, right? We're taught as workers to serve up, to serve over, to serve down. And so there's this, it's a two-sided, one-sided relationship, right? I'm trying to please you, you're trying to please me, but we're not actually connecting to each other. So when you can take that extra step to really relationship build and really get to know each other and really care about each other, your work relationships, your peer relationships, your teams can be so much more powerful. And that doesn't mean bringing every tiny aspect of your life into work. It just means taking that extra step to show that you care about yourself, which we do fail to do at work, that you care about your colleagues, that everybody's working towards the same goal. And sometimes we forget that and we get competitive or we get people pleasy, or we disconnect from the emotional side because we just like got to get stuff done. If you can get over that hump of the transactional, of the service, and really build an actual relationship, it can be so powerful. And I'm thinking back to a relationship I had early in my career with someone who I didn't get along with. We had to work together. We had responsibility to each other's jobs. I kept trying to people please her. And so I would be extra nice and extra helpful. And she would tell me she didn't need my help. And I was getting in her business. And there was a point in time where she did not get a promotion. And it was because we didn't get along. And she came into my office and she said, "They're not promoting me." Then they told me it was because I couldn't manage my relationship with you. And she said, "So now I want to build a relationship with you." And I knew she only wanted to build a relationship with me because she didn't get this promotion.
Right.
And I said, "Okay, cool. Let's do that."
Yeah.
And it's so powerful to make that shift from throwing stuff over the cubicle wall or over the fence to each other and really just like coming out of the cubicle, right? Or the metaphorical cubicle, since so many of us work remotely, and having the actual conversations and saying, "This is the thing that's bothering me. Oh, this is the thing that's bothering me. Let's work it out." We worked really well together after that. We stayed friends after that. And it can be really powerful to make those shifts. What's your take on building relationships with colleagues? What's the benefit?
I mean, I think there are lots of benefits. As humans, we have this inherent need to have relationship. And I think there is so much that we can learn from each other. As a COO, I am constantly working with people, and I want to bring people into the process of decision making, because I feel like diverse opinions and experiences really help to craft something really interesting. And if people don't feel safe, if they don't have psychological safety, if they don't feel like you're really interested, they're not going to show up fully. And so I think in the workplace, if we're going to narrow the conversation to that for a second, it's so important for us to create space for people to show up, and for us to show up fully and to be heard and to be seen. Because when we do that, I think it just creates a much more thriving environment. And plus, I don't know, play and fun are one of my values. And you can't do that if you don't have a relationship with people. I mean, maybe you can. I find it really difficult to be fully present and fully there and kind of my wacky self at times if I don't have a relationship with someone, because then I'm kind of thinking, okay, what do they think? Where are they at? Is this appropriate for them? And so I think building relationships and knowing people and being known at work is really key to some of the goals we have in organizations around productivity, high morale, cost savings. All of those things, I think, come in together when you have very healthy, dynamic relationships in the workplace. We've covered so much stuff, and there's so much more stuff that I want to say and talk about with you, Lauren. As you know, I can talk to you all day. Before we head out, I want to, are there one or two pieces of advice that you have for our community and our listeners around building healthy relationships, both in the workplace or just in general?
Well, John, first of all, I think we have a second episode coming about this.
I think that's true as well.
Building those actual relationships, how to network, how you and I connect with people, and really a little bit more of the what, right?
Yeah.
The how to and the what. So that's what we'll be back with next time. But if I'm walking away giving, one or two little nuggets, they are this. One is start figuring out how to enjoy yourself
so
with
powerful.
You. It's so powerful. It's so important. Relationship number one should be you. It makes you better for others. And I think the second thing is be willing to step out of the transactional and be willing to look around and think, who do I want a deeper relationship with? How about you, John?
There are two things that just came to mind that I try to live my life by. That is, one, keeping my side of the street clean, really doing my part and having radical responsibility for the relationships that I have and for my role in those relationships. And the second is something that I just really started thinking about recently, and I've seen a profound shift in the health of my relationship with people, and that is answering the question or asking the question, what can we build together? What can we do together? As opposed to me saying, hey, this is my agenda. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. But really, in every relationship I have, always coming to that conversation with what can we build together? And I think for me, that's one helped me to get out of what I know and the routine of what I know and what I know is possible based on the past, and really think about possibility, which I think is just so exciting around relationships. And it also invites the other person into the process. It invites the other person in the relationship into the co-creation, into the development of what that relationship looks like, what that project looks like, what that conversation looks like. It's helped me to be way more open in my relationships, which I think has really helped foster a sense of welcoming and commitment to the other person.
And I just want to acknowledge our relationship, John, and the fact that we both came into this expansion of our relationships and our willingness to see the opportunity at the same time. And how lucky that is.
I know. Again, we're going to end where we began, which is
right.
Find yourself a Lauren Lipkowitz.
Find yourself a John Spears.
We'll end by saying thank you so much to all of our listeners and our community and the people who send us feedback and send us topics that they want to hear us talk about. We really value these conversations and hearing from you. So keep on doing that. Thanks, everyone. And we're looking forward to seeing you again soon.
We're so grateful you decided to be with us during this episode. Subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues, and join us next time for more Real Talk.